Giannis to the Warriors, 8 potential suitors. After Bucks' elimination, the Greek Freak's future hangs in the balance. After suffering a third consecutive first-round exit from the NBA playoffs, speculation is mounting about Giannis Antetokounmpo's future with the Milwaukee Bucks. Could the team actually consider trading their 2-time MVP and 9-time All-Star? Antetokounmpo, who ended a 50-year championship drought for the Bucks in 2021, has delivered exceptional performances season after season since being drafted in 2013. But the roster around him has gradually deteriorated, a fact highlighted when his teammate Damian Lillard suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon on Sunday. With this in mind, it's time to look toward the future. If the Bucks are going to trade Antetokounmpo, this offseason presents the ideal opportunity. He still has 2 years remaining on his contract before he can opt for free agency, which should maximize the potential return for recently extended general manager Jon Horst. Here are 8 teams that could make a play for Antetokounmpo along with potential trade packages: Golden State Warriors trade assets, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, Andrew Wiggins, 2026 first-round pick, 2028 first-round pick, 2030 first-round pick swaps in 2027, 2029, and 2031. The Warriors present perhaps the most fascinating destination possibility for Giannis. Pairing him with Stephen Curry would create an absolutely devastating duo, combining the greatest shooter of all time with one of the most dominant interior forces the league has ever seen. Golden State's championship culture would appeal to Giannis, while the franchise is desperate to maximize Curry's remaining prime years. For this blockbuster to happen, the Warriors would likely need to part with their entire young core plus significant future draft capital. While this would mortgage their future, the Curry-Giannis pairing could potentially yield multiple championships and extend their dynasty for several more years. Houston Rockets trade assets: Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, 2025 and 2027 first-round picks via Phoenix, 2027 first-round pick swap with Brooklyn, 2029 first-round pick swaps with Phoenix and Dallas, own first-round picks in 2028 to 2030, 2031. The Rockets surprised many by earning the 2nd seed in a competitive Western Conference this season. However, their playoff inexperience showed against the veteran Warriors. Adding Antetokounmpo would immediately elevate them to championship contenders, and they possess perhaps the deepest pool of young talent and draft assets in the league. To construct a compelling offer while still retaining franchise cornerstone, Amen Thompson. Other potential suitors: Miami Heat. The Heat have long been rumored as a destination for Giannis. A package centered around Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro, and draft capital could interest Milwaukee. New York Knicks. New York has accumulated significant draft capital and young talent. A package featuring multiple first-round picks plus players like Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and Quentin Grimes might get conversations started. Oklahoma City Thunder. With the most draft capital in the league and promising young players like Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, OKC could make a compelling offer without sacrificing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Minnesota Timberwolves. Any package would likely need to include Anthony Edwards, which makes this destination unlikely unless the Wolves were willing to part with their franchise cornerstone. Toronto Raptors. After trading Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, the Raptors have repositioned themselves for a rebuild, but could pivot quickly with a package centered around Scotty Barnes and draft picks. Brooklyn Nets. With multiple first-round picks from the Suns and Mavericks, plus their own draft capital, the Nets could make a competitive offer to pair Giannis with Mikal Bridges and Ben Simmons. For Milwaukee, any decision to trade their franchise icon would be monumental. The return package would need to be historically significant, likely including multiple young stars with all-NBA potential, plus extensive draft capital. The Bucks would be looking at a complete rebuild, but with enough assets to potentially accelerate their timeline back to competitiveness. As the NBA offseason approaches, Giannis watch is officially underway. Will the Greek freak remain loyal to the franchise that drafted him? Or is it time for both parties to consider a fresh start? Warriors validate Jimmy Butler trade with playoff series victory over Rockets Houston. To be fair to Golden State Warriors owner Joe Lacob, this was anything but a victory lap. For starters, he was standing still, playing the role of cheerleader. In the corner of the Toyota Center Court, where the players whose exorbitant salaries he pays were practically racing back to the visitors' locker room to celebrate their Game 7 victory over the Houston Rockets. And secondly, he had been invited to reflect on this latest moment of meaningful basketball, as Steph Curry likes to call it, rather than the other way around. But just as Lacob began discussing the player whose February arrival made all this possible, and whose presence in their midst says so much about why this organization has been elite for so long, the man himself came running by without even saying hello. "Jimmy." Lacob shouted at Jimmy Butler as the Warriors forward stopped and turned. They embraced, shook hands. It had been nearly 3 months since Butler arrived in town, with Lacob wisely deciding to listen to his general manager, Mike Dunleavy, when he insisted the deal was worth the risk, and the time had finally come to say the obvious part out loud. "Sometimes you get it right," he told The Athletic, laughing. "That's all I can say. If the Warriors hadn't found a way to get past the first round, all the conversation surrounding Butler and the Warriors' existence would have been different this summer. Sure, it was nice that he helped them avoid missing the playoffs entirely by dominating in the play-in victory over Memphis. But the entire premise of this partnership has been about this version of Golden State convincing the masses that it was a legitimate title contender. And regardless of what happens against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the second round, it's indisputable that these Warriors were indeed in the championship mix in the first year of the Butler experiment. That's why Lacob agreed to give Butler a 2-year extension worth $121 million that runs through the 2026-27 season, looking past all the drama that took place with him in Miami and in Minnesota before that, while counting on the Warriors' culture to help the 35-year-old get back on track. And it's why, with the Warriors becoming just the number 7 seed to defeat a number 2 seed since 1984, the sight of Butler and Lacob celebrating a series win together for the first time was so significant to their overall plan. All of the Warriors players truly need to believe in this group's collective potential to avoid the feeling that it might have been a mistake. That's the harsh reality of this roster, as the advanced ages of all their key players mean there's no better time than the present. Those "we'll get 'em next year" speeches simply don't have the same impact when your stars are all in their late 30s. And while the Warriors' regular season performance with Butler was nothing short of exceptional, a 23-8 record, the league's third-best net rating, the number 1 defense, and the 8th best offense, surviving this Rockets team that seemed so capable of sending them home served as confirmation that adding Butler was, indeed, the way to go. The early returns on the Butler trade have been promising beyond just the raw numbers. His defensive intensity and competitive spirit have revitalized a Warriors team that seemed to be losing its edge in recent seasons. Butler's willingness to take on the toughest defensive assignments has allowed Curry and Thompson to conserve energy for their offensive responsibilities, while his own scoring ability has given Golden State another reliable option in crunch time. Perhaps most importantly, Butler has seamlessly integrated into the Warriors' culture, embracing his role, rather than trying to impose his will on an established system. The drama that followed him in previous stops has been notably absent, suggesting that the Warriors' strong leadership structure may have been exactly what Butler needed at this stage of his career. As the Warriors prepare for their second round matchup against the Timberwolves, they do so with renewed confidence in their championship aspirations. The Butler gamble has already paid off in terms of extending their competitive window, and now the real question becomes, how far can this reimagined Warriors core go in the Western Conference playoffs? For Lacob and the Warriors front office, the validation is sweet, even if they're not taking victory laps just yet. In a league where risk-taking is often punished, they've once again shown why they remain among the NBA's elite decision-makers.